You're 3 hours into an incident. Your EDR caught something nasty. Cobalt strike beacon, lateral movement, the works. You contain the host, reimage it, block the C2 domain at the firewall, ticket closed, threat neutralized. Then, 3 days later, it's back. Same adversary, different domain, different host. You block that one too, and the cycle continues. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If your incident response workflow ends at block and reimage, you're not doing threat intelligence. You're playing an expensive game of whack-a-mole, and the adversary always has more moles. The feed cycle, find, fix, finish, exploit, analyze, and disseminate, was developed by JSOC to dismantle insurgent networks in Iraq. They weren't just neutralizing targets, they were using each operation to find the next one faster than the enemy could regenerate. That's what your incident response should be doing. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to operationalize feed in your SOC, not as a theory, but as a practical playbook. And I'm going to show you how to do it with an entirely free set of open source tools. Let's dive in. So, what is feed? Well, feed is not a replacement for your traditional incident response workflow. It's an enhancement. Think of your standard NIST incident response lifecycle. You have preparation, detection, containment, eradication, and recovery. Feed wraps around that, adding an intelligence layer that most teams skip. The key insight here is that traditional incident response is linear. You solve one ticket, close the ticket, move on to the next. Whereas feed is circular. The output of an incident becomes the input of another. So, you can map the 6 phases of feed to the standard NIST incident response as follows. You have find, which is similar to detection. Fix maps to scoping and verification. Finish is your containment and eradication stages. Exploit is where you gather evidence for intelligence purposes. Analyze is where you perform attribution and TTP analysis. And then disseminate is where you share that intelligence back to your detection systems. And let's start using feed to elevate our incident response processes. Phase 1, find. The find phase is where most teams start. But here's the feed difference. Traditional detection is reactive. You wait for an alert. Feed detection is proactive. You can either wait for that alert or you can go on the hunt based on the intelligence from previous cycles. If you're going down the reactive approach, like standard IR, then you'll use automated detection tools. You'll respond to a SIM alert. These are correlation rules firing on suspicious patterns in your log telemetry. Or you might respond to an EDR alert. These are more behavior-based detections, like process injection or credential dumping. Then you have your network intrusion detection system. These are signature-based catches from snort or Suricata rules aimed at network traffic. Now, here's the twist. Every IOC you discover in the dissemination phase of the feed cycle can be automatically fed back into these systems. If you found a C2 domain yesterday, your firewall should be hunting for any variations of that infrastructure today. This is where CTI analysts can add their real value. You're not waiting for alerts like standard IR, you're formulating hypotheses and searching for evidence. You can use Velociraptor, an open source EDR-like tool that lets you query endpoints at scale using a standard query language. You can hunt for specific name pipes, schedule tasks, or registry modifications across your entire environment in minutes. Or you can use RITA, which stands for Real Intelligence Threat Analytics. It analyzes NetFlow data to detect beaconing behavior. If an adversary is using a C2, RITA will spot that rhythmic communication pattern even if the domain isn't flagged as malicious. You can also use Sigma rules. These are generic detection rules you can convert into your SIM's query language. The Sigma repository on GitHub has hundreds of hunting queries based on known tactics, techniques, and procedures that you can use. The goal of the find stage is to identify a specific threat that warrants investigation. Once you have that, you can move on to fix. Phase 2, fix. You've got a hit. Now you need to answer the two big questions. Is this real? And how big is it? Fix is your verification gateway. You find a lead and then you fix to confirm it. You should never trust a single data source. If your EDR flags suspicious PowerShell, verify it. You can try checking the parent process. Was it spawned by a user action or by something else? You can try checking the command line arguments. Are they encoded? What is the command actually doing? Or you could check the network connections from that host. Is it talking to external IPs it shouldn't be? Tools that you can use during this stage to verify your findings include Sysmon logs. If you're running Sysmon with Swift on Security's configuration, you have gold level process creation, network connection, and file creation logs. You can query these in your SIM to build a timeline of events and verify the incident is real. On the network side, you can use things like Wireshark or T-Shark. These allow you to pull a PCAP or packet capture of the suspicious traffic. Then you can see exactly what is being transmitted. Is data being exfiltrated? How much? What protocol is being used? On the memory side of things, we have Volatility. If you captured memory during the find phase, you can use Volatility to analyze it to see what processes were running, what network connections existed, and what's been hidden from the disk forensics. The fix phase ends when you've answered, yes, this is a real threat, here's why, and here is the data source I need. Phase 3, finish. So now you act, but here's the feed discipline. You don't just nuke the threat, you finish in a way that preserves evidence for the exploit phase. You have a spectrum of responses at your disposal, ranging from subtle ones to scorched earth. You have deny, where you can block their C2 IP address at the firewall. This is simple, fast, but they'll just spin up a new one. Then you have degrade, where you could rate limit their C2 traffic, make them think the connection is flaky. This buys you time to investigate without tipping them off. Then you have disrupt, where you reset the compromised account's password, force them to re-authenticate, and potentially reveal more tools or accounts that have been compromised. And then you have destroy, where you can isolate the host, kill the process, wipe it, and re-image the machine. Which one you choose depends on how far along the kill chain the adversary is. Do you have everything you need to move to exploit? Can you afford to let the adversary live 10 minutes longer in your environment while you grab more data about them? It is key during this stage that you preserve any evidence you find. Before you pull the plug on anything, try capturing that volatile memory. Use FTK Imager or magnet RAM capture to dump the RAM. Once the system powers off, you lose loaded malware, decryption keys, and injected code forever. Also, try to take a forensic disk image of that machine. Use DD or FTK Imager to create a bit-for-bit copy of the drive. This is your ground truth about what actually happened on the system. And, ideally, perform a network packet capture. If the C2 is still active, let it run for another 60 seconds while you capture the traffic. Here's the failure mode I see constantly. Teams will kill the malware and move on. They just destroyed the crime scene. That's not feed, that's just the first 3, find, fix and finish. You're not learning anything from the incident. Don't be that team. Let's add in some intelligence. Phase 4, exploit. This is the phase that separates sophisticated CTI teams from ticket closers. Exploit is not about exploiting the adversary, it's about exploiting the evidence to extract maximum intelligence. Let me tell you a story. When I was a new analyst, I'd spend my entire day chasing indicators of compromise. I'd find a malicious IP, block it, find another, block it. I felt productive and I was closing tickets, but I wasn't learning anything about the adversary. Then a senior analyst pulled me aside after we'd just contained a phishing campaign. Instead of blocking the sender domain and moving on, he opened the malware in a sandbox, extracted the C2 infrastructure, then used the diamond model to pivot. That one IP address, it resolved to 5 other domains. Those domains hosted on the same ASN. That ASN used by 3 other campaigns in the past 6 months, all targeting our industry. Suddenly, we weren't just blocking one IP, we were mapping an entire threat actor's infrastructure. And that is the difference when you add intelligence into the incident response process. Now, the exploit phase can have many workflows. You could use malware analysis. When you recover a malicious binary, you can dissect it using 3 levels of analysis. Level 1 is your static analysis. This is safe and fast. You can use PEStudio or Detector Easy to examine the file without executing it. You're looking for hard-coded IPs, suspicious imports, and compiler timestamps that might indicate the developer's time zone. Try running the strings command and extract all those ASCII strings from the binary. You'll be surprised how many C2 domains are just sitting there in plain text. Then we have level 2, where your dynamic analysis comes in. Use Any.run or hybrid analysis. These are both free online sandboxes where you can upload a malware sample, watch it execute in a safe virtual machine, and then capture DNS requests, file system changes, registry modifications, network connections. If you can't upload it to a public service, try self-hosting something like Cuckoo Sandbox. Then we have level 3, reverse engineering. This is where you use advanced tools like Ghidra, where you turn that machine code back into pseudocode, find obfuscated C2 addresses, encryption keys, or even kill switches. This is where you find the real gold. Or perhaps you want to perform memory forensics for exploit. If you captured RAM during finish, you can analyze it with Volatility 3. You can list running processes, inspect network connections, and check for injected code. This finds malware that never touched the disk, fileless attacks living only in the memory of machines. Now, you might be asking, what am I trying to hunt for in all this data? What am I trying to find? Well, you have new IOCs, like domains, IPs, or hashes, that weren't previously found. You have attribution markers, like PDB paths with developer usernames, language settings, and compile times. You have tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs, like how did the adversary move laterally? What credential dumping method did they use? Did they use RDP or PESexec? And then you have strategic intent. What were they after? Did they stage zip files of financial data? Or did they use an encryptor to deploy ransomware? Every one of these feeds into the next phase. Phase 5, analyze. Exploit gave you the data, the hashes, IPs, timestamps. Now analyze converts that into intelligence. Actionable insights about who, why, and what's next. You take every data point you found and run it through your intelligence workflow. Maybe you found an IOC. Well, you could run it through something like VirusTotal, a free threat intelligence aggregator. Submit that IP address, see what sandboxes detect it, check community notes. Or you could use AlienVault OTX, the Open Threat Exchange. See if any other organisation has reported that indicator before. You could even look for similar samples on things like URL-Hars or Malware Bazaar. These are databases of known malicious URLs and malware samples. But the real power is when you perform pivoting using the diamond model. The diamond model has 4 points: adversary, capability, infrastructure, and victim. You map every piece of evidence to one of these points and pivot to discover connections. For instance, say you find a malicious domain. Well, that would fall under infrastructure. Then you perform a whois lookup on that domain to see who registered it, and you find a specific email. Well, you could put this under adversary as an alias. That email might resolve to another 12 domains that it used to register for. Well, you've just expanded that infrastructure section. Now you submit those domains to VirusTotal. They're all linked to the same malware family. You can categorize this under capability. Now you find out that malware family is attributed to APT28. Again, the adversary category expands. Now, you didn't just block one domain. You identified 12 other domains that haven't even been used yet. And that is the essence of proactive defense. Also, during the analysis stage, you want to map the TTPs you find to the MITA attack matrix. You want to try to abstract the adversary's behavior to techniques, not just the tools they use. If they use Mimikatz, you could abstract this to LSAS memory dumping. Or maybe they use PSExec. Well, you map this to SMB and Windows admin shares. Perhaps they're C2 beaconed every 60 seconds. Well, you can find out what web protocols they use for this C2 and map it accordingly. Now, why does this matter? Because if you defend against a technique, you don't just stop one tool, you stop an entire suite. You're defending against credential dumping, not just Mimikatz. Also, during analysis, you can perform some predictive analysis work. Based on the TTPs you've mapped and the intelligence you've gathered, you can use this to predict the adversary's next move. This is the so what of analysis. It answers, what should we be doing differently to get ahead of this threat? Phase 6, Disseminate. Intelligence that isn't shared is intelligence wasted. Disseminate is what makes feed a cycle, not a linear process. And we can split the disseminate phase into 3 distinct types of intelligence. You have tactical intelligence, which is immediate and now. These are your IOCs that need blocking right this minute. You can use a platform like MISP, the Malware Information Sharing Platform, which is an open source threat intelligence tool. You can auto-export IOCs from MISP directly to your firewall, IDS and EDR tools. No manual copying. Or you could use OpenCTI, another great open source intelligence platform you can use to manage your IOCs and create threat reports. This is the feedback loop. The IOCs you found an exploit are now being immediately searched for in the next find phase. You're blocking that immediate threat. Then we move up to operational intelligence. This is where you share the tactics, techniques and procedures with your threat hunting team or SOC. You create Sigma rules for the techniques you observed, host them in a Git repo so that hunters can pull them down into the SIM. Then you update your EDR hunt library with the new behavioral patterns you found. This targets indicators further up that pyramid of pain. Then we have strategic. This is where you create a report for the leadership team to brief them on what has happened. It could be an adversary profile, Who hit us? What did they want? How sophisticated were they? Or a risk assessment. Are we being targeted specifically, or was this an opportunistic attack? Always include recommendations in these reports, like we need MFA on all our admin accounts, or we need to better segment our network. Aside from internal dissemination, you can also share your findings with the wider community. Don't hoard your intelligence, share it. You could share it with your industry ISAC. These are information sharing and analysis centers, industry-specific threat intel sharing, or with a MISP community. These are public feeds where organizations share IOCs anonymously. When you disseminate to the community, you create that herd immunity. Your finish becomes someone else's find. Practical application. Let's put it all together with a realistic scenario. I'm going to show you exactly how this plays out in the real world, tool by tool, decision by decision. So here's the scenario. You get a phishing email with a malicious attachment. In the find stage, your email gateway flags this email as suspicious, and it contains a weird PDF. The user clicked it before it was quarantined, and your EDR generates an alert about a suspicious process that spawned PowerShell. That's your find. You have a lead to investigate. At Fix, you query your Sysmon logs. You find the PowerShell command line is base64 encoded, and you try to decode it. Then you find a PowerShell cradle pulling from a suspicious domain. You check the netflow data and find 3 other hosts have contacted that domain in the past hour. Fix confirmed. This is real, and you've scoped it out. Then Finish comes in. You isolate all 4 of those hosts, but before wiping them, you use FTK Imager to capture the RAM from patient 0 and pull a PCAP of the initial download. Then you block the domain at the firewall. Evidence preserved, now the real work begins. During exploit, you upload that suspicious process to Any.run, and you find out it's a Cobalt Strike beacon. You extract the C2 configuration using Ghidra, and you find 3 other C2 domains hard-coded into the binary. 2 of them weren't in that original alert. You run memory analysis with Volatility to discover they injected into Explorer.exe and create a scheduled task for persistence. You now have 3 C2 domains, an injection technique, and a persistence mechanism. During the analyze stage, you query VirusTotal for those 3 C2 domains, and 2 brand new ones pop up, all linked to TA505. Then you check the whois data. You see the same email and same registrar used to create 8 other domains. And then you can start mapping the TTPs. A spear phishing attachment, PowerShell, process injection, scheduled task. Next up is Disseminate. You push all 11 domains, the 3 C2 ones, plus the 8 you discovered from the whois data, to your MISP instance. This auto-synchronizes with your firewall and blocks them in minutes. Then you create a Sigma rule for that base64 PowerShell that was spawned, and you share this with your threat hunters. You send an email to IT forcing password resets for the affected accounts, and report to your CISO confirming the APT activity and recommend blocking email attachments and application whitelisting. 1 phishing email, 11 blocked domains, 0 successful re-entry. And that is the power of the feed cycle. Here's your homework. Pick 1 incident this week. Don't just close it, exploit it. Ask, what can I learn that stops the next one? Spend 30 extra minutes doing that analysis. Map the incident to the diamond model. Extract 1 new IOC and push it to your block list. Next week, do it again. The week after, do it even faster. The adversaries you're facing aren't standing still. They're learning from their failures. The only way to win is to learn faster than they do. Your incident response shouldn't just solve problems, it should make problems impossible to repeat. If you implement this workflow, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment with your first exploit finding. What did you discover that you would have missed with traditional incident response? Thanks for watching, subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next one.